The shuttle doors opened and Park stepped onto 9 for the first time. The space station was enormous. Through the transparent walls, she could see dozens of ships moving in and out of docking bays. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds lived and trained here, and now she was one of them. She carried a single bag over her shoulder. Everything she owned fit inside it. That was the life of a girl who grew up in the slums of. You learned to travel light. You learned to fight for everything. You learned that nobody was coming to save you. Now she was here, selected for the Galactic Coalition Military Academy's exchange program. The first human class to train alongside species who had traveled between stars when humans were still living in caves. A Pelian officer checked her credentials at the entry gate. The creature was short and round, with large black eyes and gray skin. It looked at her documents, then looked at her, then looked at the documents again. Human, it said. The word sounded like a question. Yes, replied. Barracks 7, orientation in 1 hour. The Pelian handed back her documents without another word. Walked through the station's wide corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved around her. Some walked on 2 legs like her. Others crawled, floated, or moved in ways she could not understand. Many of them stared at her as she passed. She heard whispers in languages her translator could not process. She found Barracks 7 after getting lost twice. The room was simple, a bed, a storage locker, and a small window looking out at the stars. Another human was already there, sitting on the bed across from hers. You must be, he said, standing up. He was tall and thin, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. I am one, former military intelligence. Shook his hand. Former street fighter, no military training. One raised an eyebrow. They selected a street fighter for the academy. They said they wanted different types of humans. Dropped her bag on her bed. I think they wanted to see what we could do. Or what we cannot do, one said quietly. The orientation hall was massive. Hundreds of cadets sat in rows, organized by species. Counted only 12 humans in the entire room. They were placed in the back in the smallest section. At the front of the hall stood the instructors. Most of them were species did not recognize, but one stood out from the rest. He was tall, almost 3 meters. His skin was dark blue and he had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. His face was hard, with a mouth full of sharp teeth and eyes that looked like they had seen 1,000 battles. This was Instructor Os, and even before he spoke, knew he would be trouble. Welcome to the academy, Os said. His voice was deep and cold. Most of you will fail, some of you will die, that is the nature of war. He walked slowly in front of the rows, looking at each section of cadets. When his eyes reached the humans, he stopped. This year we have a new species joining us, humans. He said the word like it tasted bad. A young race from a small planet, they have no natural weapons, no claws, no armor, no venom, they are soft, they are slow, they are weak. Felt her hands tighten into fists. Beside her, one placed a hand on her arm. The coalition believes in giving every species a chance, Os continued. So we will give the humans their chance. But let me be clear, this academy does not accept weakness. If you cannot survive, you will be removed. He moved on, continuing his speech, but did not hear the rest. Her mind was focused on one thing. She would prove him wrong. The first combat assessment came 2 days later. Each cadet was matched with an opponent for a basic fighting evaluation. Watched as aliens twice her size fought with claws, tails, and natural weapons that humans could never match. When her name was called, she stepped into the ring. Her opponent was a massive creature with thick gray skin and arms like tree trunks. It stood almost 2 meters tall and weighed at least 3 times what she weighed. This will be quick, someone in the crowd said. The bell rang. The charged at her like a freight train, dove to the side, feeling the wind as its fist passed her head. She rolled and came up fast, throwing a punch at its ribs. Her knuckles hit skin that felt like stone. The laughed. It swung again, and this time it connected. The blow caught in the chest and sent her flying backward. She hit the ground hard, the air knocked out of her lungs. "Stay down, little human," the said. Pushed herself up. Her chest burned, she could taste blood in her mouth, but she stood. The hit her again, and again. Each blow should have ended the fight. Each time fell, each time she got back up. The crowd grew quiet. They had expected an easy victory. Instead, they watched a small human take punishment that would have broken other species, and refused to stop. Finally, they grabbed her by the throat and lifted her off the ground. Could not breathe. Her vision started to go dark. "Yield," it said. "No," she whispered. The bell rang. Time was up. They dropped her and collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. She had lost. There was no question about that. But as she lay there, she saw something in the eyes of the aliens watching her. It was not pity. It was not amusement. It was curiosity. After the assessment, one helped her walk back to the barracks. Her body was covered in bruises, and every step sent pain through her muscles. "That was stupid," he said. "You could have yielded." "No, I could not," replied. One was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "I understand." That night, lying in her bed, stared at the ceiling. Asa's words echoed in her mind. Soft, slow, weak. She closed her eyes and made a promise to herself. In 1 month, when the first cuts were made, she would still be here, and everyone who doubted humanity would start to understand what they were really dealing with. The stars shone through her window, cold and distant. Somewhere out there was Earth, her home. She thought about the streets, of the fights she had survived, the nights she had gone hungry. This academy thought it was hard. It had no idea what hard really meant. Smiled even though it hurt. Let them underestimate her. That was always when she fought best. 2 weeks passed at the academy. Bruises healed, but new ones took their place. Every day brought new training, new pain, and new lessons about how different humans were from the rest of the galaxy. The Coalition had developed combat techniques over thousands of years. Each movement was precise. Each stance was calculated. Masters from 100 worlds had contributed to create the perfect fighting system. Hated it. The formal techniques felt like chains around her body. When she moved the way they taught, she felt slow and clumsy. Her street fighting instincts screamed at her to move differently, to react faster, to fight dirty. But every time she did, the instructors marked her down for improper form. "You are fighting like an animal," one instructor told her. "This is a military academy, not a street corner." Bit her tongue and said nothing. One evening, she sat alone in the training hall, practicing the same punch she had failed 100 times. Her body was exhausted, but she refused to stop. "You are doing it wrong." Turned, a woman stood at the entrance, a human woman older than her, wearing the uniform of a Coalition pilot. Her name tag read Han. "I know," said, "everyone keeps telling me." Walked into the hall and sat down on a bench. "I watched your fight with and I have been watching you train. Come to give me advice on proper form." "No," smiled. "I came to tell you to stop trying to fight like them." Lowered her fists. "What do you mean?" The Coalition techniques were designed for species with different bodies, different reflexes, different instincts. When a throws a punch, their forearms create a specific pattern. When a kicks, their tail balances them in a certain way. These techniques were made for them, not for us. Then how are humans supposed to fight? Stood up and walked to the center of the training floor. The thing that makes humans dangerous is not our strength, it is not our speed, it is our unpredictability. Other species evolve to recognize patterns. They see an attack coming and their brain tells them how to respond. But humans, we do not follow patterns. We adapt. We change. We do things that make no logical sense. She took a fighting stance. The aliens call it broken pattern recognition. They cannot predict us because we do not fight the same way twice. That is our weapon. Stop trying to be like them. Be human. For the next hour taught her, not the coalition techniques, but something different. She taught to trust her instincts, to move without thinking, to let her body react before her mind could catch up. Humans evolved as prey animals, explained. We were hunted by everything on our planet, but we did not die. We learned to sense danger before it arrived. We developed instincts that other species never needed. Use them. The next day, entered combat training with a different attitude. She still used the formal techniques when needed, but she stopped fighting against her own nature. When her body wanted to move, she let it. When her instincts screamed a warning, she listened. She won her first sparring match that day, then her second. Other cadets began to notice. A reptilian named approached her after training. "You fight strangely," said. Her scales were dark green and her yellow eyes studied with interest. "I cannot predict your movements." "Is that a complaint?" "No, it is a compliment," tilted her head. "My people are logical. We analyze patterns and respond accordingly. But you have no pattern. It is fascinating." An unexpected friendship began. Was curious about humans, asking endless questions about Earth and human culture. Found herself enjoying the company of someone who did not see her as weak. But not everyone was pleased with her improvement. Instructor Os watched the humans more closely as the weeks passed. His 4 eyes followed their every movement during training. He pushed them harder than any other cadets, creating drills that seemed designed to break them. One morning, he called all the cadets into the main combat hall. "Today we test your awareness," he announced. "A warrior must always be ready. Danger does not announce itself. It strikes when you are not looking." He walked through the rows of cadets, moving behind them. Felt his presence pass behind her, and every muscle in her body tensed. "Most species develop awareness through training," Os continued. "They learn to watch for threats, but some species are born as prey. They flinch at shadows, they jump at sounds, they are ruled by fear." He stopped directly behind the group of human cadets, could feel him there even though she could not see him. The hair on the back of her neck stood up. Something was wrong. "Let us see how the humans respond to danger." Heard it before she understood it. A whisper of metal cutting through air. A shift in the atmosphere behind her. Her body moved before her mind could think. She spun around, her hand shooting up. Her fingers closed around something cold and sharp. The training hall went silent. Stood there breathing hard, holding a ceremonial knife by the blade. Blood dripped from her palm where the edge had cut her. Os stood 5 meters away, his arm still extended from the throw. She had caught a knife thrown at full speed, without even seeing it coming. Every cadet in the room stared at her, could hear whispers spreading through the crowd. Evan's jaw had dropped open. Os walked toward her slowly. His 4 eyes were wide, showing an emotion she had never seen on his face before. "How did you do that?" he demanded. Looked at the knife in her hand, then back at him. "I heard it." "You heard a knife flying through the air?" "Yes, I heard the air move. I felt your weight shift when you threw it. My body just reacted." Os was quiet for a long moment. The other instructors had gathered at the edges of the hall, watching with intense interest. "That is not possible," an instructor said. "No species has reflexes that fast. The knife was traveling at lethal velocity." "Humans do," his voice came from the back of the room. She walked forward, coming to stand beside. "We evolved on a world that wanted to kill us. Every animal, every plant, every disease tried to end us. So we developed senses that other species never needed. We can hear frequencies you cannot. We can sense threats before they arrive. It is not magic, it is survival." Ah stared at for a long time. She stared back, refusing to look away. Finally he spoke. "All cadets are dismissed. Training continues tomorrow." The room emptied slowly. Cadets kept looking back at as they left, their faces full of shock and confusion. One and waited for her at the door. But before could leave, Oz spoke again. Human. She stopped and turned. Oz stood alone in the empty hall, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. This is not over. Nodded, I know. She walked out of the training hall, the bloody knife still in her hand. Her palm hurt, but she was smiling. Let them throw whatever they wanted at her. She would catch that too. News of the knife catch spread through 9 like fire. Within hours, every cadet on the station had heard the story. By the next day, even the senior officers were talking about it. Noticed the change immediately. Aliens who had ignored her before now watched her closely. Some moved away when she walked past, as if afraid she might attack. Others stared with a new kind of respect in their eyes. You have become famous, told her at breakfast. Everyone is asking questions about humans. Good questions or bad questions? Asked. Both. Bit into something that looked like purple meat. Some say you are dangerous, others say you are interesting, a few say both. One sat down across from them carrying a data pad. His face was serious. We need to talk, I found something. They moved to a quiet corner of the dining hall. One placed the data pad on the table and pulled up a document. I have been searching the Coalition archives since you caught that knife, he said. I wanted to understand why everyone was so surprised. I found classified files about Earth. Looked at the screen. The document was marked with warning symbols she did not recognize. What does it say? Earth is classified as a Class 4, one replied. That is the second highest danger rating in the Coalition system. Made a strange sound, something between a cough and a gasp. That cannot be correct. Are planets where sapient life should not evolve. The conditions are too hostile. Exactly. One scrolled through the document. Look at this. Earth has extreme temperature variations from -50 to +50 degrees. It has massive storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. The atmosphere is corrosive. The star emits dangerous radiation, and the native life forms spend most of their time trying to kill each other. Shrugged, that just sounds like Tuesday. Stared at her, you are joking. A little, looked at the data pad more closely. So Earth is considered dangerous. Why was this classified? That is what I wondered, one said. So I kept searching. I found communications between Coalition diplomats from when humans first made contact with the galaxy. They were afraid of us. Afraid of humans, laughed. We cannot even breathe underwater. You do not understand. The Coalition had never encountered a species from a before. Every other sapient species evolved on stable, safe planets. They developed technology because they had time and peace. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, and they survived anyway. The diplomats did not know what that meant for the galaxy. Scales had turned a lighter shade of green. This explains much. My people always wondered why humans seemed so comfortable with danger. We thought you were simply too stupid to be afraid. Thanks, said dryly. I did not mean. I know, smiled. Keep going, one. The Coalition decided to keep this information quiet. They did not want other species to fear humans, and they did not want humans to know how unusual they were. The official line is that humans are a young, developing species with potential. The truth is that humans are survivors of conditions that should have killed them millions of times. Later that day, was called to the medical wing. A Pelian doctor named wanted to examine her. Your reflexes are remarkable, said, running a scanner over her body. I have studied many species, but I have never seen neural responses like yours. Sat on the examination table, feeling uncomfortable. Is there something wrong with me? Wrong? No, you are perfectly healthy. That is what makes this so fascinating. Pulled up a display showing nervous system. Your body processes sensory information faster than any species in our database. When that knife was thrown at you, your brain received the warning signals, calculated the trajectory, and sent commands to your arm before you consciously knew what was happening. So my body moved on its own. In a way, yes. Humans have what I call a survival override. When danger is detected, your thinking brain steps aside and lets your instincts take control. Other species must think before they act. Humans act first and think later. Made some notes on a data pad. I would like to study you more, with your permission, of course. Before could answer, the door opened. A human man in a commander's uniform walked in. He was older, with gray at his temples and a stern face. "That will have to wait," he said. "I need to speak with the cadet alone." Bowed and left the room. The commander waited until the door closed before speaking. "I am Commander. I am the human liaison officer for this station." Stood and saluted, "Sir." "Sit down, cadet. This is not that kind of conversation." He pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "You have created a problem for me." "I did not mean to." "I know," held up a hand. "You reacted on instinct. You protected yourself. That is not a crime, but you also revealed something that we have been trying to hide." Understood immediately. The thing. "You have done your research. Good. Yes, the classification. For years, humans have been careful to appear non-threatening. We are new to the galaxy. We do not have powerful allies or advanced technology. Our survival depends on being seen as harmless." "But I am not harmless." "No, you are not, and now everyone knows it." Leaned forward. "There are species in the coalition who already fear humans. They see how fast we breed, how quickly we adapt, how aggressively we expand. They worry that one day humans will become a threat to galactic peace." "Will we?" Was quiet for a moment. "I do not know, I hope not, but that is not the point. The point is that you have shown the galaxy what a human can really do, and there is no going back from that." "What should I do?" "Continue your training. Prove that humans can be trusted. Show them that our abilities can be used for good, not just for violence." He stood up. "And be careful. Not everyone will be happy about what you did." That evening found us waiting outside the barracks. The instructor stood in the shadows, his 4 eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "I have been thinking about you," he said. "That sounds dangerous." Os did not laugh. "I have trained warriors from 40 different worlds. I have never seen anyone catch a knife thrown at their back. It should not be possible. And yet here we are." "Here we are," he stepped closer. "I want a real fight, not a training exercise. A formal duel recorded and witnessed. I want to see what a human can really do." His heart beat faster, but she kept her voice steady. "And if I refuse?" "Then I will know that your knife catch was just luck, and so will everyone else." She should say no, she knew that. Os was a veteran of wars she could not imagine. He had killed enemies with his bare hands. Fighting him was suicide. But she thought of every alien who had called her weak. She thought of words about proving that humans could be trusted. She thought of her life fighting against odds that should have crushed her. "I accept," she said. Os smiled, a cold, sharp expression that showed all his teeth. "Good. The duel will be in 3 days. I suggest you prepare." He walked away into the darkness. Appeared from around the corner. She had been listening. Her scales were pale with fear. "You cannot be serious," she said. "Os has never lost a duel in 40 cycles." Watched the instructor disappear into the night. "Then this will be interesting," she said. The formal dueling arena was the oldest part of 9. It had been built 3,000 years ago, when the coalition was first formed. Great warriors from across the galaxy had fought and died on this floor. Now the seats were filled with cadets, officers, and visitors from a dozen species. News of the duel had spread beyond the station. Ships had arrived just to watch a human fight the legendary Os. Stood at one end of the arena, wearing simple training clothes. Her hands were wrapped in cloth and her feet were bare. She had no weapons. She had nothing but her body and her will. At the other end stood Os. His 4 arms hung at his sides, each one capable of crushing bones. His dark blue skin seemed to absorb the light. His 4 eyes were locked on her with absolute focus. One and sat in the front row, stood near the entrance, her arms crossed. Commander watched from the officers' section, his face showing no emotion. An announcer's voice filled the arena. This is a formal duel under coalition rules. The fight ends when one combatant yields, loses consciousness, or is unable to continue. Lethal force is permitted but not required. May honor guide both warriors. A horn sounded. Os attacked. He moved faster than expected. One moment he was across the arena. The next his fist was flying toward her face. She ducked, feeling the wind pass over her head. Before she could recover, his second arm swung low, catching her in the ribs. The blow lifted her off her feet. She hit the ground hard, rolling until she crashed into the arena wall. The crowd murmured. Some aliens laughed, others shook their heads. Pushed herself up. Her side burned with pain, but nothing was broken. Not yet. Yield, Os said. You cannot win this. The fight just started, replied. She charged at him. He swung with his upper arms while his lower arms guarded his body. 4 arms meant 4 times the defense. Every opening she found was closed before she could strike. His fist connected with her shoulder, then her leg, then her chest. Each hit sent her stumbling back. Each hit added new pain to her body. Blood appeared on her face from a cut above her eye. More blood dripped from her split lip. Her left arm hung awkwardly where a blow had numbed the nerves. The audience grew quiet. This was not a duel. This was an execution. But kept standing. Os hit her again and again. She fell, rose, fell again. Her body absorbed punishment that would have killed most species. And still, she refused to stay down. Why do you not yield? Os demanded. Frustration crept into his voice. You cannot beat me, you must know this. Spat blood onto the arena floor. I know. Then why continue? She smiled with bloody teeth. Because I am human, and we do not know when to quit. Something changed in the fight. Stopped trying to win. Instead, she started watching. Every time Os attacked, she studied his movements. Every time she fell, she learned something new. He was fast, but he was predictable. His 4 arms always moved in the same patterns. His body always shifted the same way before a strike. He had trained for thousands of hours to perfect his technique. That technique was now his weakness. Remembered words, broken pattern recognition. Humans were unpredictable because they did not follow rules. They adapted. They changed. They did things that made no logical sense. The next time Os swung, did not dodge backward. She stepped forward inside his reach. His fist passed over her shoulder, missing by centimeters. Surprise flashed in his 4 eyes. She drove her knee into his lower stomach, the soft spot where his 4 arms connected to his body. It was a target she had noticed during her days of watching him train. Os grunted. It was the first sound of pain he had made. He pushed her away and swung again, but was already moving. She ducked under his arm and struck the back of his knee. His leg buckled slightly. The crowd stirred. Something was changing. You learned my patterns, Os said. There was no anger in his voice, only interest. I had good teachers, replied. They circled each other. Blood dripped from many wounds, but her eyes were clear and focused. The pain had become background noise. All that mattered was the fight. Os attacked again, but this time was ready. She moved in ways that no training manual could teach. She struck at joints and pressure points that the streets had taught her to find. She used his own strength against him, redirecting his blows instead of blocking them. It was not graceful. It was not pretty. It was ugly, brutal, desperate fighting, the kind of fighting that kept you alive when everything wanted you dead. And slowly, impossibly, it was working. As was breathing harder now. Strikes were leaving marks on his dark blue skin. For the first time in 40 cycles, he was facing an opponent who would not break. He roared and launched a full assault, all 4 arms striking in a deadly storm, took hits that should have ended her. Her vision blurred, her legs wobbled, blood filled her mouth. But she saw an opening. As's right upper arm swung wide, leaving his neck exposed for half a second. It was a tiny window, almost impossible to exploit. Took it. She caught his wrist with one hand and used his own momentum to spin inside his guard. Her other hand found the nerve cluster at the base of his neck, another lesson from the streets, where knowing how to disable larger opponents was the difference between life and death. She pressed hard. As's eyes went wide, his arms stopped moving, his knees hit the ground. Stood behind him, one hand on his neck, the other pulling a blade from his own belt. She held the weapon to his throat. The arena was completely silent. For a long moment, neither of them moved, could feel her heart pounding. She could feel every wound on her body screaming for rest, but she held her position. Yield, she said. As stared at the floor. His 4 arms hung limp at his sides, 40 cycles of victories, 40 cycles of being undefeated. I yield, he said. Dropped the knife. She stepped back and offered her hand. As looked at her outstretched fingers. In his culture, helping a defeated opponent was an insult, but something in his eyes told him this was different. He took her hand, she helped him stand. The arena exploded with noise. Cadets were shouting, stamping their feet, making sounds in a dozen different languages. Officers spoke rapidly into communication devices. Cameras recorded everything. A human had defeated the undefeatable. As medical staff rushed in to treat her wounds, As leaned close to her ear. How, he asked, how do you keep fighting when your body is broken? Looked at him with exhausted eyes. We do not know how to stop, she said. That is the human curse, and our greatest strength. As nodded slowly. For the first time since she had met him, he looked at her not with contempt or anger. He looked at her with respect. You have taught me something today, human, he said. I will not forget it. Collapsed into the arms of the medical team, finally letting the pain take her. But even as darkness claimed her vision, she was smiling. She had done it. She had shown them what humanity could do. 6 months had passed since the duel. The seasons had changed on a dozen worlds. Ships had come and gone from 9, and Park had healed, trained, and grown stronger. Today was graduation day. The ceremony hall was decorated with banners from every species in the coalition. Thousands of guests filled the seats. Dignitaries from distant planets watched through holographic screens. This year's graduation was special. It was the first time humans would receive full coalition military certification. Stood at the front of the graduating class. Her uniform was crisp and clean, bearing the marks of her achievements. A silver pin on her chest showed that she had completed advanced combat training. Another pin showed excellence in tactical thinking. A third, the rarest of all, showed that she had won a formal duel against a superior opponent. Beside her stood one calm and proud. Behind them was her green scales shining in the light. They were not just classmates anymore. They were a team. They had trained together, fought together, and survived together. The commandant of the academy, an ancient Pelian named, stepped to the podium. Today, we celebrate the completion of training for the academy class of this cycle, he said. These warriors have proven themselves in combat, in strategy, and in character. They are ready to serve the coalition and protect the peace of the galaxy. He began calling names. One by one, cadets stepped forward to receive their certification. Each received applause appropriate to their achievements. When his name was called, something unexpected happened. The entire hall rose to their feet. Aliens of every species stood and applauded. The sound was thunderous, shaking the walls of the ancient hall. Walked to the stage, her heart pounding, her eyes stinging with emotions she could not name. Placed the certification in her hands. Cadet Park, you have achieved the highest scores in combat assessment in the last 20 cycles. You have demonstrated abilities that have changed how the Coalition views your species, and you have shown us that true strength is not about size or power, it is about will. Bowed, thank you, sir. There is more, gestured to someone at the side of the stage. Oz stepped forward. He looked different than he had 6 months ago. There was no coldness in his eyes, no contempt in his expression. He walked to the podium with the dignity of a warrior who had learned humility. I have a request for the graduate, he said, his deep voice carried through the silent hall. The Coalition has offered you a field position, a command on a patrol ship. It is an honor reserved for the best. Nodded, I know. I am asking you to refuse it. Murmurs spread through the crowd, one and exchanged confused looks. Instead, Os continued, I am asking you to stay here, at the academy, as my co-instructor. The murmurs became gasps. An instructor position was the highest honor the academy could offer. It was never given to a graduate. It was never given to someone from a species as new as humanity. You want me to teach? Asked. I want you to show them what you showed me. Os stepped closer. For 40 cycles, I taught warriors how to fight. I taught technique and discipline and form. But you taught me something different. You taught me that there is more to combat than patterns and rules. He turned to face the audience. Humans do not fight like other species. They adapt. They endure. They refuse to accept defeat even when defeat is certain. These are not things that can be taught through normal training. They must be demonstrated, lived, experienced. He looked back at, I threw a knife at you on your first month here. I wanted to prove that humans were weak. Instead, you caught it without even looking. That moment changed everything. Now I want the galaxy to understand what that moment meant. Was quiet for a long time. The entire hall waited for her answer. She thought about her journey, the slums of the shuttle ride to 9, the months of pain and doubt and struggle. Every time someone told her she could not succeed, she had proven them wrong. Now she had a choice. She could take the field position and become a warrior, or she could stay and become something more. She thought about the new human recruits who would come to the academy, young men and women from Earth who would face the same prejudice she had faced. They would need someone to show them that it was possible to succeed. I accept, she said. The hall erupted in applause again. Os nodded with what might have been a smile, looked pleased. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Dignitaries wanted to meet the human who had defeated Os. Reporters wanted interviews. Commanders wanted to discuss future missions. But slipped away from all of it. She found a quiet observation deck and stood looking out at the stars. Footsteps approached behind her. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. You are avoiding your own party, Os said. I needed a moment. He came to stand beside her. They looked out at the darkness together. I never asked you something, he said. When I threw that knife, you caught it without looking, but you could have died. If your reflexes had been a moment slower, the blade would have killed you. Were you not afraid? Thought about the question. I did not have time to be afraid. My body moved before my mind could process what was happening. That is what makes humans so dangerous, Os said. Other species freeze when danger comes. They think, they analyze, they hesitate. Humans just act. Is that a compliment? It is a fact. He paused. When I fought you in the arena, I was certain I would win. I had defeated warriors from 40 worlds. What was one small human? But you would not stop. No matter how many times I struck you, you kept rising. I broke your body, but I could not break your will. Humans are stubborn. You are more than stubborn. You are something the galaxy has never seen before. He turned to face her. Prey that became predators. Victims that became victors. a species that should have died a million times and instead conquered their world and reached for the stars. Finally looked at him. What are you trying to say? I am trying to say that I was wrong about humans. I thought you were weak because you had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. But I understand now. Humans do not need those things. You are the weapon. The next morning stood in the training hall. A new class of cadets had arrived. Among them were 8 young humans, nervous, scared, surrounded by aliens who looked at them with doubt. She remembered how she had felt on her first day. The fear, the anger, the determination. As entered the hall and stood beside her. Together, they faced the new recruits. "Welcome to the Galactic Coalition Military Academy," said. Her voice was clear and strong. "Some of you have traveled across the galaxy to be here. Some of you have never left some of you will succeed. Some of you will fail." She picked up a training knife from the table and held it up for everyone to see. "I am Instructor Park. My co-instructor is Os. Together we will teach you how to survive, how to fight, how to face enemies that are bigger, stronger, and faster than you." She looked at the human recruits. They stared back at her with hope in their eyes. "Some people will tell you that you are too small, too weak, too soft," she smiled. "They are wrong. I am living proof that they are wrong." She tossed the knife into the air, caught it without looking, and placed it back on the table. "Now," she said, "let us see who is paying attention." The training began. And somewhere in the back of the room, watching the new cadets take their first steps toward becoming warriors, Os smiled. The galaxy was changing, and humans were leading the way.